This video is sponsored by Squarespace. 238 Formula 1 race starts spread over 15 years. 593 points scored across 5 different teams. 10 P5s, 3 P4s, but never able to break into that elusive top 3. 37 years of age, the twilight days of an F1 driver's career. A podiumless statistic hanging over his entire Formula 1 career. A statistic that is no more. It took until race 239 where NICO hulkEnberg scored 15 points, taking his career total to 608, bagging a P3 finish at the 2025 British Grand Prix. A podium at f***ing last. This is the kind of good news story we do not hear all that often in the piranha club that is this sport. The vibes were off the scale, the tear ducts were on the edge. My name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. A shadow that has hung over one of F1's most competent and consistent drivers of the last decade. But he hasn't even got a podium would ring around many an Instagram, Twitter comment section to slander his ability with no apparent understanding of the nuance as to why this has been the case. On this very channel, 28th of October 2022, I made a video talking all about all of NICO hulkEnberg's very near misses. I'm not going to repeat it bar for bar. I'll stick a link above and in the description below. I'd recommend you watch it after that. There's plenty of occasions. Sometimes he cocked up himself, sometimes he was just a victim of bad luck. To use this to discredit the man's ability was always so far off the mark. I mean, think Kevin Magnussen, for example, right? K-Mag only scored 1 podium for his entire Formula 1 career on debut for McLaren, that P2 in Australia. Should the fact that Kevin happened to get that P2 weigh into any discussion, comparing hulkEnberg to Magnussen in terms of merit, in terms of ability? Of course not. They're both great drivers in their own right, but I'd certainly put hulkEnberg over K-Mag if we're kind of ranking them head to head. And we saw that play out last year at Haas, didn't we? But yeah, what a moment. What a moment it was. It was just unbelievable. And it's kind of poetic for him to get it done in a Sauber as well. Won the clock back to 2012 and he was in a Force India, the team that is now Aston Martin, performing very well, much more favourably relative to his teammate Paul di Resta. Now NICO made the decision to gamble on a move to Sauber for 2013. In 2012 they'd scored podiums with both of their drivers, Kamui Kobayashi and Sergio Perez. It seemed like an upgrade, an opportunity to go to a bigger team with a higher ceiling. Unfortunately, what actually happened is the Sauber stagnated in 2013 and the Force India got even better. I'm pretty sure if hulkEnberg had stayed for 2013, he'd have got his podium in that season. So to find himself back at Sauber 12 years later to score not only his first podium in F1, but the first podium for Sauber since those podiums from Kobayashi and Perez in 2012, which is what they sold the dream, I guess, to NICO on originally all those years ago. Therapeutic to all parties. For Sauber, the closest they'd come to a podium was a P4 for NICO in that 2013 season in Korea. It didn't happen, but now it has. A dragon slain for both driver and team. NICO hulkEnberg, the super sub, the ever reliable. It's so rare that a driver continuously finds their way back into this sport, given what's on stake, and how many drivers want one of those 20 seats. When NICO departed Renault at the end of 2019, that felt like it was it. That felt like that was the end of his Formula 1 career. A new generation will quickly come in and replace you. It is a short career relative to most. But the fact he always found his way back, be that deputising for Aston Martin during his time out or returning to F1 with Haas in 2023. It just goes to show the esteem he was held in within the paddock by the people whose opinions really mattered. Consistent, reliable, high-performing, these are all words that can be used to describe NICO hulkEnberg, but also used to describe today's video sponsor, Squarespace. The all-in-one website building platform I've been using since 2018, which predates any F1 content on this YouTube channel. Historically, I've used it for my portfolio. I now use it for TOMMO'S Racing Goods, my merchandise store, hat and t-shirt still live. And whether you want an online portfolio, store, blog, whatever the application, Squarespace, give them a try. Thousands of beautiful drag and drop templates are at your fingertips, with Blueprint AI software enabling you to cultivate the exact, beautiful, perfect website for whatever you may need. It's completely free to try, so you might as well give it a go. It only asks for payment when you want to publish your finished website live to the world. And when that time inevitably comes around, head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your very first website or domain. It's often mentioned how NICO hulkEnberg probably could have done a job in that second Red Bull seat, that Horner and Marko should have considered him. It's interesting to think about. I want to ponder that, right? Because does he have more experience than Pierre, Alex, Liam did at the time of jumping into Red Bull themselves? Of course, yes. Is he more well-rounded than Yuki Tsunoda that we've got in that Red Bull seat right now? I believe so. And is he a better driver with a higher ceiling than Sergio Perez? In my opinion, he is. We did see them go at it as Force India teammates back in the day, and often Perez would come out on top. Often NICO would come out on top. I'll put some stats here. You can make a judgment. All in all, I think NICO had the advantage over a lap. Checo probably slightly more in the races. But what we do know is that that second seat doesn't accurately reflect the talent, the quality of the drivers that have been jumping into it since Ricciardo left at the end of 2018. Now, what we do know is NICO has an excellent relationship with Max Verstappen, whether they're giving each other toes in qualifying or the first to congratulate each other after a banging result. You could see Max was absolutely gassed for NICO. hulkEnberg is a bromance that is pretty underreported, but is definitely there. But to be honest, even with NICO's excellent one-lap prowess and very, very good race management, there is no guarantees he would have jumped in and done any better than any of the other drivers. And we saw Checo, seem like a shell of himself over much of that time as Max's teammate. Could the same have happened to NICO? Absolutely. But just in the same way as Daniel Ricciardo back to Red Bull would have been fascinating to see, I would love to have played out that alternative timeline where Red Bull Racing plonk Nico Hulkenberg in that Red Bull seat for, I guess, the start of this season, and see if he's able to find any kind of consistent performance in that car, unlike all of the drivers who've come before him. I wouldn't put money on it, to be honest, not a meaningful amount of money, maybe like a $5. But that's about it. I do probably think he would have been better than Perez and better than all the juniors. And I think there was possibly an opportunity missed for Christian and Helmut. But at the same time, I don't think he would have been like loads better. I still think he would have been 3-4 tenths off of Max, which isn't bad relative to how things look right now, but certainly isn't great either. I also think we should reflect on Nico's short-lived broadcasting career, right? Because, again, he was out the sport at the end of 2019. Renault kicked him to the curb. It was Ocon and Ricciardo for 2020, and he needed to find some work. He occasionally popped up on German broadcaster RTL for the 2020 season, but was also doing reserve driver stuff. Obviously jumped into the Racing Point, didn't he? And did that unbelievable qualifying lap at Silverstone. But then 2021 took him up a full season of reporting as an expert for Austrian F1 broadcaster Service TV, who is owned by Red Bull. Full circle, The connection was there clearly. Quick, if you've got to this part of the video, like and comment mint ball down below. Banging hat, by the way. Now, Nico Hulkenberg isn't just an F1 driver. He's a human being, and he's done a lot of living since he joined the sport in 2010. But a lot of personal things, big things, happened in that 2021 year when he was working for Service. I mean, basically the two biggest things you can do he did in that year. He got married and he had his daughter. With F1 being the travelling circus it is, you can absolutely understand, he considered his F1 career probably done at the end of 2019. He can take back, use his experience, his knowledge to work in a broadcaster role for years to come, settle down, finally out of the rat race that is F1, get married, have kids. Lovely jubbly. Living at home, having that financial stability. If you're gonna be a top F1 driver, you have to sacrifice a lot. Nico Rosberg's talked a lot about this in order to win that 2016 title. He really did put it all on the line. And if you're gonna maintain a standard, you need to make sacrifices. But Nico wasn't anymore because he was done. Or so we thought. Because I absolutely believe that time away from the sport will probably actually extend Nico's full career length in the same way that I think Fernando, having the breaks that he's had, taking that time to win Le Mans, as did Nico Hulkenberg, by the way. He did the exact same thing. Actually, I think a bit of time away can elongate a driver's career. I think Lewis is definitely the exception, not the rule, of someone who's now 40 years of age and has continually raced in Formula 1. Although even Lewis started at 22. He wasn't like 17 like they all want to start him nowadays, you know what I mean? Yet it was those super sub appearances in 2020 and 2022 that planted the seed for Hulkenberg's return. Not just in the minds of team principals across the grid who wanted to bring him back, but also I'm sure in himself personally reignite the spark, right some wrongs. And fast forward today, he's not just competitive in midfield machinery, he's actually gone and put it on the bloody podium. About time. Honestly, it's so good. I'm so chuffed. I was surprised by how kind of emotional I felt about it, actually. And it was just such an outpouring on the TV. Like, you see how much it means to him. Gabby put it right. Gabby running over to him afterwards, wholesome as fuck, and just being like, you're a legend, which, you know, is literally it. I've always had a lot of time for Nico Hulkenberg, but damn, geezer. Now Nico has got that podium. He is off the list of, you know, most drivers to have a race and never get a podium. But there is one on the current grid who is in the top 10 of all time. Most races started having never gotten a podium. Got a guess? Give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yuki Tsunoda, 99 starts and counting, a best result of a P4 at the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I wonder why nobody remembers that one. Look, at least Yuki's in a Red Bull now, which I know has not gone well so far, but there's always a way, there's always potential to luck into a result. He needs to luck into a podium as things are going right now, let's be honest. But I do hope, really do hope, that Red Bull keep him in the car for 2026, because he is an incredibly talented driver. Have the technical team build a competitive 26 car with a wider operating window that can work in a post-Verstappen era, and I believe Yuki-san can cook. Don't forget, he's got a 100% Q3 rate in a Racing Bulls in 2025, P5 in quali in Australia, then P8 and P9 in sprint and normal qualifying in China. We know the talent's there, the same way it was there for Gasly, for Albon, for Lawson, for Perez. The environment at Red Bull right now is not conducive of a second driver succeeding. That is just clearly, objectively, the truth, but 2026 is an opportunity for Red Bull to change that, because they can't rely on Max forever. F1 fans have short memories, right? You're only as good as your last race. But I think Nico and Yuki are two great examples of many F1 drivers that have come and gone from this sport. Most never win a race, most never stand on a podium, plenty never even score a point. There have been, and there will continue to be, many who will, you know, have opportunities on paper to deliver, but don't for whatever reason. Maybe they need a better car underneath them, maybe they just need a bit more luck. I really do hope Yuki finds his way onto the podium one day, just as Nico finally has, because they both deserve it. But this is a top level sport, this is not charity. There are no handouts, everybody's there for themselves. The game is in fact the game. My name's Tomo, thanks again, have a good one, ta-da.